All right, I think we're ready to get started. I'm Emily Williams. I'm a business reporter with the Post and Courier. I also write our weekly business newsletter. So if you've received those newsletters, should be one that just went out just now. So if you received those, I'm behind those as well. We're going to be talking for the next about 30 minutes here about labor in South Carolina and different changes that have happened during the last couple years of the pandemic. So also with us today is our business editor, John McDermott, and David Wren, business reporter. And let's just go ahead and get started. We got some great questions from some of the people who are tuning in, and so we'll weave in some of those. And if you have questions as you're watching, you can also use the Q&A function, and we'll be monitoring those as well. A recording of this event is going to be emailed out to everyone who signed up. So if you miss a little bit, or if you know of someone who'd be interested in watching this back later, feel free to share that. So expect to receive that a little bit later this week. All right. So just to give a little bit of a snapshot of where things are right now, obviously there have been a lot of changes related to the labor market during the pandemic. Of course, in the first year of the pandemic, we saw pretty dramatic unemployment as people lost their jobs in the early months of the pandemic, primarily in hospitality. And steadily, the employment situation has improved when we look at things like unemployment rate. The unemployment rate in South Carolina in December, or in November, excuse me, fell to 3.7%. That's down from a height of about 11.5% during the pandemic. And actually, the latest jobs report will be out tomorrow. So we can't give you the December numbers yet, but we'll know those very soon. And of course, the challenge that a lot of employers are facing right now is recruiting talent and also dealing with staff shortages amid people getting sick with the Omicron variant of coronavirus. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of where things are right now. Let's start things off with taking things back to about 6 months ago when Governor McMaster and also primarily Republican governors across the country decided to end kind of enhanced unemployment benefits early. So they were supposed to last through September. Governor McMaster and, like I said, many other governors across the US decided to end those benefits early, saying that the extra money people were receiving was a deterrent, and that's why especially the hospitality industry was having a hard time recruiting, and that could be a possible solution. So John and David, let's talk a little bit about that. How did that actually play out? Did it play out as McMaster and others had expected, that was going to really push people back into the labor market?
I'll take a first swipe. Pardon my voice, I have a bad sore throat, but as far as I could tell, the experts said it didn't really play out as intended. I talked to Tom Barkin, who's the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, and he said that was the story he was looking for. And this was in maybe September, October timeframe, and it really never played out that way. It may have been that the governors waited too long to do that. I don't know. Most of the explanations seem to go to either people had children to take care of at home who couldn't go back to school. They had bona fide health concerns, but nobody. It's funny because we're still in the middle of this, so it's so hard to really gauge what worked and what didn't, so to speak. But so I don't know if we'll ever know the true answer, but yeah, the bottom line is that it didn't prod really a meaningful number of people back into the workforce that had been collecting benefits.
Right. Yeah, I think if you were to look at the labor force participation rate, if stopping the benefits was an incentive to go back to work, that rate would have shot up, I would think, but it's stayed pretty low in South Carolina, below 60%. So you've got like 4 out of 10 people who are eligible and could go to work are sitting on the sidelines. They're not going to work. And that's true since the enhanced unemployment benefits ended. So you sort of wonder, well, if they're, if the unemployment benefits, if the extra $300 a week was keeping people on the sidelines, why aren't they going back to work now? And so it doesn't look like there's a correlation between, the ending of those benefits and people wanting to go back to work.
Yeah, kind of on the subject of unemployment, labor participation rate, unemployment rate. Like I said at the beginning, the rate in South Carolina has really steadily decreased over the last year, come down to, at the latest point, 3.7%. Has been better than the US overall and at a lot of points in the last year. One of the questions from readers that was submitted was, how good of a measure is that unemployment rate that we get when it comes to, how is the labor market really doing in South Carolina?
That's an economist question. They rely on that number a lot. And it's hard to say. It's definitely one indicator. It shouldn't be to me, you can make the argument that median family income is a meaningful labor figure, statistic. And we've been near the bottom of that barrel for decades, and it's really hard to climb out of. So unemployment rate alone is, like I said, it's just one yardstick as to how a state's economy is doing.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The unemployment rate's also a lagging indicator, so it tells you what the economy has been doing in the past, not necessarily what's happening right now. I think maybe a better overall view of the economy is GDP, which tells you sort of the overall measure of how an economy is doing over a period of time, rather than the snapshot of unemployment each month. All this, unemployment is an important statistic, and this is one of the things that economists rely on. But I think there are better measures of how an economy is doing, especially when you have issues like labor force participation and people not actively looking for work.
And the other thing is that the headline number generally doesn't, it doesn't get into the weeds, so to speak, as far as there are certain, people who aren't doing as well, generally, minorities. So they generally have a higher unemployment rate than others. So there are some disparities. So it's all like they throw everything in one pot, and we come out with this number that right now at 3.7% looks pretty good, almost back to where we were. I looked at the number November 2019, and it was, what did I have? It was about the same. It was slightly lower though. It's interesting though, the workforce has gotten bigger while the number of employed workers has gotten smaller by about 6,000, not really meaningful. But the workforce itself is almost 25,000 people larger. I don't understand the disconnect there, but there you have it. It's me doing economist work, being dangerous.
Yeah, another thing that people had asked about are, what are the sectors of the economy in South Carolina that stayed pretty steady in terms of jobs during the pandemic, or have been adding more jobs? We can also, I think, talk a little bit too about overall health of which industries continued to do well, because a few folks were asking about that too.
Yeah. I looked at some BLS numbers, and they break it down by major categories. And I looked back to about 2 years ago, and most of the sectors have experienced very mild growth. You would think, home building, good Lord, there's a sector that's done really well, but the growth as far as employment, not so much, which probably reflects the housing, the quote housing shortage, which you wouldn't know from looking around here. But of course, the big exodus was from the leisure and hospitality industry. I think they're still down by, if I got my numbers right, they bottomed out, the workforce bottomed out at about 148,000 in April 2020. It was at 273,000 right before COVID, and it's right 250 now. So we're down 23,000 jobs there still. So that's obviously that the biggest gainer, and David might be able to speak more to this, it's like they call it the super category of trade, transportation, and utilities. And that's up about 11,000 jobs over COVID. So if you wonder why, you could have the port, it includes retail, it includes all those distribution centers that are being built out by Somerville.
Right. I think retail is a big part of that too, because, as the pandemic was hitting in 2019 or 2020, stores were shutting down, people weren't going out and shopping. And now, over the past year, looking at the state statistics, the retail and transportation added 14,200 jobs. So that just shows a ramping up again of the stores, and as you said, John, the distribution centers that are being built, and all of the Walmart distribution center and the others that are coming online now up in the Somerville area.
Right, and like you said, the leisure and hospitality sector has had the biggest fluctuations right over the last 2 years. By far the most jobs lost, and then I know that in the last jobs report, the monthly jobs report, that leisure and hospitality was either the big or one of the biggest gainers for that month. So definitely coming back, but one of the things that's limited the job growth for that sector is that, of course, businesses, hotels and restaurants are saying we can't hire enough people. So a different kind of restriction on the job growth, not for lack of opportunities, but at least for what people in the industry are saying is a lack of applicants, and a lack of interest. That is definitely an ongoing conversation in that industry about the many reasons for that. I know that just this week, the state's tourism director, Dwayne Parrish, was talking with a House committee about a budget for the year, and that came up, even though it was unrelated to what they were talking about. It was someone on the committee saying, when are restaurants going to get better? I keep walking into restaurants and they can't seat me and they have tables open. And he did say that the state's tourism office is going to be working with the South Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association and putting some money toward recruiting efforts. So unclear what that looks like. Yeah, I don't know if either of you have anything to add on that on the hospitality front, but definitely an ongoing conversation in that industry about getting more people applying and retaining workers.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's a problem not just in retail and hospitality, but across the board, just finding workers. And just sort of, this statistic I like from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, it sort of states the obvious, but it's the worker availability ratio, and it sort of measures the number of people who are actively looking for jobs versus job openings. And in South Carolina, the ratio is at 0.89 people for every job. So, there's not even one person to fill every job that's available. So employers can no longer be picky about who they want to hire. They're very, it's difficult to find the people that they need to fill those positions. So they're looking for things like higher wages, flex time, things like, the availability of childcare is another thing that's holding people back from going back to work. So just those types of things that an employer can offer, maybe aside from a higher wage, that could bring people back to work.
Yeah, and we're seeing it at companies like Walmart. They're offering like college, and obviously small businesses can't do that, but it's going to take some outside the box thinking to get people interested in these jobs again, because they, at the entry level, they don't pay well. And if you think back to January or February of 2020, this is not a new labor shortage. This is just a different labor shortage. Because back then, the fact that the unemployment rate was basically at full employment, that was the issue then. Now the issue is, there's been a rewriting of the whole, worker, employee, employer contract, the unspoken. People have had time to think about their priorities and, how much money they want to make, and they have options, and it's definitely a buyer's market now. I don't know how long it'll last, but that's what COVID did to the job market. It basically turned the tables and made the employee or the job hunter, put them in the driver's seat.
I could maybe add one more thing to that we're talking about wages and the enhanced unemployment benefits. Even when the enhanced employment benefits were coming through, that was an extra $300 a week. If you got the maximum from the state's unemployment, you're still making about $626 a week, which comes out to about $15, $16 an hour. And I think it's hard to find jobs now that don't pay that, because employers realize they've got to be able to pay these higher wages or they're not going to find workers. You can go to fast food restaurants paying $15 an hour now.
Oh yeah, I was driving by Raising Cane's in Mount Pleasant. They have a big sign out front. I think it might be 18. I'm not sure what their rate was, but I'm seeing a lot of those signs outside these service businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much across the board. That's what heard from, like I said, especially in the hospitality industry. Restaurants, hotels are just have accepted that that's part of it, is that they have increased their wages and they don't expect that to change.
Yeah.
Pivoting a little bit, let's talk about another thing that's been a big topic when it comes to, well, just businesses in general, but also there's been some discussion about potentially its impact on employment, and that's COVID-19 vaccination policies. I think a lot of companies were waiting to see what would happen when the Supreme Court heard arguments related to the Biden administration's vaccine mandates, and of course the one that was proposed for companies with 100 or more employees, which obviously would impact a lot more businesses, was the one that was rejected by the Supreme Court. But at least in South Carolina, I think one of the interesting and big examples is Boeing, close to 6,000 employees. And initially what we heard from Boeing is that they announced that they were going to have a vaccine mandate. That was a little earlier in this process, where it seemed to be a little bit more definitive that federal contractors would need to require that of their employees. And then Boeing came back right at about the time that employees would have had to get vaccinated under that policy, and said they were taking that policy back. So Boeing initially said, we're requiring vaccines. Then in December that changed. And even though they said a lot of employees, they didn't specify how many, but a lot of employees got vaccinated in that interim, that they won't be requiring. So do you have any other examples of South Carolina companies and what they've been saying and doing about vaccine mandates?
I don't have any specific that I can think of other than Boeing's, because it's such a high profile. In the national news, I mean, Starbucks, they are a South Carolina employer, actually, because they have a roasting plant up in St. Matthews, but they have they've done with Boeing. This is what I call trying to catch a falling syringe, I guess, so to speak. Is that there has been mixed messaging from the federal government on how to deal with this, and obviously this one went to the Supreme Court, so we have a definitive answer now. My sense is that, but okay, we also have a couple hardliners, Citigroup, one of the biggest banks in the world, they're sticking to their vaccine mandate. And I think Carhartt, which makes the clothes, they are as well. My sense is, though, that I think businesses, a lot of them will go with what Boeing and Starbucks have done. Will follow that lead. It's just my hunch.
Mhm, mhm. Another thing I wanted to make sure we fit into the time here is to talk a little bit about this big shift to work from home and how we've seen that play out in South Carolina. So we have one example right here in Charleston, where we have Blackbaud that decided that long term they're going to have their employees be able to work remotely, work from home, have a hybrid format. This is another one of the questions from our readers about how that shift has affected the outlook for office real estate and commercial real estate in Charleston. Have we seen an impact on that from that shift to more companies working from home?
You know, the Blackbaud decision was pretty stunning because the company had just built like a brand new headquarters on
Right.
Daniel Island. And so obviously this is a decision they took very seriously, and they're looking out. You know, they're in the technology field. They're a little more accustomed maybe to this sort of operation, so it might have been an easier decision. I don't know about an easier one financially, but I don't see us. I remember I did a story. I've been with the paper so long. I did a story, I think in the 90s on telecommuting. And I talked to a woman at Blackbaud, and she begged me, she agreed to talk, but she begged me not to name her employer because she was afraid her coworkers would be resentful. And so, you know, so we kind of worked with her on that, just said she worked for, but I don't see us going back. And the impact on the office market, I think I read it's a $2.5 trillion market. It's incredible. And when you think about it, it supports a lot of other businesses. Like if you work in an office, you're going to go have lunch at the deli down the corner, that sort of thing. It's the impact. We haven't seen it here yet. There's some empty buildings, I think, that have been built that haven't filled up. But you know, the issue with offices is that there's leases, and most of them, I think the average lease is like 7 years old. So this is something that's going to play out gradually. But there's no question, if you're an office landlord, you're going to be nervous, and you're going to have to think creatively. You know, there's one theory that companies will come back but need more space for social distancing reasons. Maybe, but I think more are going to go. More who can will go to the hybrid model, and maybe take less space and have fewer people in at one time. But that's going to be a fascinating real estate story as it unfolds.
Yeah, I know Warren Wise on our desk has written about that, and for the most part, I think a lot of real estate experts companies are kind of saying that they feel optimistic right now, but it is too early.
We're always
It's
optimistic.
too early, right? So you're right, we
there.
haven't really seen that yet, but that'll be interesting to watch. Another question that we got related to that shift in work from home is, you know, we saw a lot of people move away from cities like Washington, D.C. and New York during the pandemic when their jobs were remote and their location was more flexible. And some people were asking, I think most of us know, you know, what has been the population move in Charleston? People are moving in and not out. And we've definitely heard a lot, I think, anecdotally about people moving from New York, DC, other bigger metros to areas like Charleston with that shift in work from home. And the question was if we've seen any impact from that yet, you know, in terms of our real estate market or things like that.
I think certainly you can attribute the price acceleration in homes to some of that, because these people are moving from Northeast markets where housing is exponentially higher. And so they're coming here and they have cash to burn, so to speak. I've never seen so many California license plates in my life as I have here. It used to be you never saw them, and now they're all over the place. And and some are leaving there places like that for tax reasons and looking for a good quality of life space. We're on the same latitude as San Diego, so maybe that's where they think they're coming. But it's definitely certainly having an impact on housing.
Yeah, I see a lot of Washington license plates. I guess these are Boeing employees moving here. There's a lot of in-migration to this area. Not so much people leaving.
Yeah, the other impact is that it spawned a we full Facebook page.
Right. Yeah, and I think another question that came up, but one that I don't think there's an answer to, especially because we're in the middle of it, is how does that impact the labor market in South Carolina when it comes to employers trying to recruit talent? If someone's moving here, they're technically living in South Carolina, but they already have a job, right? And are working for a company that's based elsewhere in the United States. Good question. I forget who that came from, but I don't think, right, that there's really an answer that we can give to that. That'll just kind of be an interesting thing to follow as we have more of that dynamic.
Yeah, I think being an HR person or if you're hiring, it's no longer putting an ad on Monster or there's so many considerations now. I think Larry Fink from BlackRock was talking about it in a letter he put out this week. This is like you got to think about not only pay but career advancement opportunities, flexible work schedules, and then there's the whole environmental, social, corporate governance movement that sort of is just kind of come out of really nowhere over the last few years. And so it's not just a matter of matching a person with a job. It's like that person has to want that job, and they have to sort of buy into your what you're doing and how you do business.
I wanted to mention really quickly, I thought we got an interesting kind of comment and question from Josh saying, I'm going to kind of paraphrase, that he's worked in the service industry and the pandemic brought a change in perspective, and have since returned on a part-time basis with less responsibility. Believes that the changes we've seen across so many industries are positive, and like you'd said, John, that people have reassessed their own priorities and work culture has shifted, and asking, if there's a positive way of viewing some of these labor shortages, a lesson in how to work culture and how employers need to approach things. So I just wanted to call out that comment. I thought that was an interesting perspective.
I guess it depends. Will COVID bring long-term changes? There's evidence that there was a piece in the Washington Post the other day about after World War I, workers in France basically rebelled against the establishment, and they succeeded in getting a 5-day work week. So it's a grassroots kind of thing, but it's got to fight the fight, I guess, if you want to change stuff. And it's it's going to be really fascinating to see whether this is a long-term fundamental shift in the workplace.
I went to a job fair a few months ago that was held by MAU, which they do recruiting for a lot of the manufacturers in the state. And one of the things that recruiters were telling me is that they're seeing people wanting a greater emphasis. COVID has created a greater emphasis on family, sort of personal, time, and sort of this, like what Josh was talking about. And so they said that there's a greater, there's more talk about providing this work-life balance among manufacturers, whether it's just talk, whether it's something that they can actually do. That's another question. But there's definitely, I think COVID has sort of shifted people's attitudes toward the workplace. They realize that there's more to life than work, and they want to experience that as well.
Definitely. We also got a question, I know, about what percentage of the COVID deaths in South Carolina were people eligible in the labor market. I don't know if we have those numbers broken down in a way that we can answer that. I mean, no matter what, the confirmed deaths are very significant. It's close to 13,000 right now in South Carolina. So if I can find a number that breaks that down, I'll find that and get that out in our newsletter. It's an interesting question, but I don't think we quite know that number either. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions beforehand. Like I said, we had a lot of really great questions. So I think people are definitely interested in this topic. If you are a subscriber to the business newsletter, thanks for that. Also, since there were so many good questions, I always like to note, if you are a subscriber to that, if you respond to that goes to me. So a person gets your email if you respond to that newsletter. So if you have questions or thoughts or ideas for stories that you think we should be covering, that's another great way to reach us too. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to the Post and Courier, you can do that by going to postandcourier.com/subscribe. And our newsletters are at postandcourier.com/newsletter-sign-up. And one more reminder, we will have this recorded, so this will go out to everyone who's signed up. And John and David, unless you had anything else to add, I think that we'll wrap it up.
Thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Headlines by the Post and Courier.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.